All right. Welcome everyone to webinar number 8, 10 communication rules for fitness. Oh, there he is. He's made it. We started without you, Mr. Carr. So I'm Brendan Rierick, everybody. I am the facilitator today and the fashion expert. More about my fashion abilities and expertise to come later. Kevin and Jenny are actually my personal shoppers. Jenny Rierick is here. She's a CFSC coach, a communications expert, and yes, she is my wife. Kevin is not my wife, but he is a transformational coach. And we have Stephen Bigelow with us, or Stoven Bigelow, whichever you prefer, who is the leader of Honest Fitness and a contributor to today's call. So Kevin, Stephen, and I will be kind of chiming in and giving our 2 cents, but Jenny will be really running this webinar as she's the expert. We have translation offered again tonight with our good friend Bruno. And for our Brazilian friends, we have, if you want to ask a question, I ask that you only do it in the Q&A box, please. Do not raise your hand. Do not put it in the chat box. Use the Q&A box only. That's the only place we'll answer questions. The questions that we had you answer before, when you registered, we went through them, and about 40% of you said that your biggest problem or the thing that you would like to learn about the most in regards to communications is tough conversations, which was about 40% of the answers. And then evenly distributed was written communication, filler words, and presenting. And Jenny will be answering all of those as well. You will get a post email with a recording of this and a PDF of these slides, but Jenny's slides as well. And I know she has a PDF. Is there anything anyone would like to add before we hand it over to Jenny? Everyone on mute except for me?
All good, Jenny. It's all you.
All right. Without further ado, Jenny Rierick, you can introduce yourself and the floor is yours. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
And there you go. Hey, Kevin. Welcome.
Brendan, I need you to...
I'll make you the host, actually. There we go.
Thank you. Okay. Can we see that?
We can see it.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and I'm very excited to be on this webinar. I have been sitting on the sidelines for the past 8 weeks listening to Brendan on these things for hours on end, and so now But as Brendan mentioned, my full-time job is a communications and public speaking coach. I mostly work with corporate professionals, and over the last few months have been attempting to bring this type of training into the Fit Pro and sport professional space because I see a need for it. And I'm hoping that the information that I share with you all today will prove that to you and also give you some tangible skills that you can use starting tomorrow for communication. So the title of the presentation is Communication Rules for a Successful Career in Fitness. I want to highlight one word here, and that's successful, because success will mean something different to each of you. And so I'm not trying to define what success is or what it should be for any of you, but I want you to think about, as you listen to this presentation, how do you define success and what does that look like? Most of the people that I've worked with over the course of their career, they realize that success is not a one-stop at the end of your career. It's something that can happen on a daily basis, because what it really means is that you're achieving the results that you set out for yourself and for the people that you work with. And so if I know what those are and I'm able to achieve those results on a daily basis, then I can be successful every day. And that success will only build from day to day, eventually leading to a successful career. as fitness professionals or practitioners, what is it that we all want? And this also applies to people outside of fitness as well. According to Cal Newport, who wrote a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You, there are 3 things that define a great job. The first is the ability to be creative. And so you see a picture of a program here. For you to love what you do in fitness or otherwise, you need to have the ability to put into practice all of the knowledge and skills that you've gathered for yourself and test them out and find ways to use them that other people are not. So just being creative and not simply being told what to do and then having to put into action what somebody is telling you to do. The second element of a great career is that it allows you to make some type of impact. So you see a group here from CFSC. As Brennan mentioned, I teach a few CFSC courses, mostly out here on the West Coast, but this is what I would consider impact. And each of you who work with individuals who are in pain, who are trying to lose weight, who are working with you for sport performance reasons, that's all having an impact, because what you do with them will change the course of their athletic career, or it could get them out of pain so they can live the life that they've always wanted to live. And then the third element of a great career is to have, my screen is blocking this, control. Control means autonomy. When I ask people what is it they want from their job, the number one thing that you hear is they want freedom. They want freedom to be able to manage their own schedule. They want freedom to be able to work with whoever they want to work with. And so that's the third element of what a great career would look like. To get those 3 things, to find that career, if you haven't found it already, you need to develop a set of rare and valuable skills. Because if we don't have rare and valuable skills valuable to either our employer or the individuals or teams that we're working with, then I can't push myself further to be able to have that impact, that control, and that creativity that I want. So many of us are looking for those 3 things in the first 2 to 3 years of our career, which is unheard of. Like 1 in a million people are able to find a job that's creative, it has impact, and it gives them the freedom to manage their own schedule early in their career. Usually it's at least 10 years in, if not more. And so when we look at it like that, we have to shift our mind frame from trying to create that so early on, and instead use those first 5 to 10 years of our career to focus on building up what we would consider rare and valuable skills. For fitness professionals or practitioners, anyone in our field, those rare and valuable skills will fall into 2 categories. One is going to be your technical knowledge and skills, and then the other is your ability to communicate. And you see Steve there doing an awesome bridge, making his debut in the PowerPoint. Most of us in fitness or in our field spend most of our time and money developing our technical knowledge and skills, and not so much on our ability to communicate. How do we do that? Well, we spend money to get a degree in kinesiology, exercise science, all of those things. After we graduate with a degree, we go and take certification programs that we spend time and money on. We take continuing education courses. We attend conferences. We speak or network with our colleagues, or we participate in self-directed learning, which is what this webinar or this webinar series has been about. And so you see on the left there, we use all of those, the technical knowledge and skills that we develop through those types of programs to come up with great ideas or things that will allow us to be better at the daily demands of our jobs. But if we don't, those technical skills can only take us so far, because no matter how good my ideas are or how technically sound I am in what I know or what I am able to do, if I cannot communicate that knowledge and share those skills in a way that makes sense to the people that I am speaking with, this is what the scenario looks like. Okay, I see an obvious solution to something, but because I cannot communicate, nobody is buying into my ideas. And you think to yourself, I thought this would be easy. If I just became an expert, if I educated myself to the nth degree and I took every continuing education course there could be, that I have this huge toolbox of options that I can use with the people I train, the clients, the athletes, everything else will take care of itself. And that's not true. So what happens is all these great ideas I have go to what I call a graveyard of great ideas. They don't go anywhere. And essentially all of that time and that technical knowledge and skills are wasted time. So we need to balance things out. We need to spend more time elevating our ability to communicate so that it is equally as strong as the technical knowledge and skills that we've spent time and money to develop. When my technical knowledge and skills are equally as strong with my ability to communicate, then I have no ceiling. I can take it wherever I want. I can take it in the direction that I can find creativity, I can have control, and I can have an impact on the people or the groups of people that I'm working with. So I need to spend that time to develop my communication skills. And when I do that, all of a sudden, all of those technical knowledge and skills that I have, when I present them to somebody else, whether that's a client or at an industry or networking event, people understand my ideas and they want to know more. And they want to buy in and take my ideas and share them with more people. So over the next, I think 30 minutes or so, 30, 40 minutes, this is what we're going to cover. I'm going to talk to you about what effective communication is. Effective communication, we hear all of the time. It's somewhat of a buzzword, but I don't think we spend enough time telling people what defines effective communication. And so I'm going to do that first, which will then lead us into the 10 rules, the 10 communication rules, which this presentation is based off of. I'm then going to specifically address the survey from the webinar that all of you completed when you registered. So talking about tough conversations, presenting, writing skills, filler words, and those types of things. And then I'll finish with talking to you about how you can apply what you learned from this webinar moving forward. So what is it that defines effective communication? This is what I call a pyramid of communication. At the very bottom, you see that there's presence. And I'll go through what each of these is. Presence is at the foundation, and it's what needs to come first in order for everything else on top of it to make sense and to get the most out of. Above presence, we have message organization. And then finally, at the top, we have interactions. And so the bottom and the middle levels are things that I control and only I am involved with. And then I take those things to the top and I begin to interact with the people around me, applying my presence and my message organization skills. What is presence? Presence, very simply stated, is how you look physically and how you sound vocally. So when you are speaking, or this could even come across in your writing from the vocal side, how is it that others see you physically? And how do others hear what it is you are saying? That's it. That's what presence is. And so having a strong presence would mean that I have an impactful, compelling, confident body language, and I am in control of my voice and how I use my voice to project and articulate whatever it is that I want to share. Message organization has 4 components. Up on the top left is our audience. To be able to put together a message, I say message, and message can be anything. It could be a text message, it could be a formal presentation, Maybe you're calling a client to leave a voicemail. It will always include these 4 things. Who is it I am speaking with? Before I create a message or think about what I want to say, I need to know who I am sharing it with. Because knowing that will change the words I choose to use. It will change the channel that I might choose to share my actual message. I wouldn't communicate the same way with a group of 14-year-old high school athletes as I would with my group of 55 plus personal training clients. Okay, I would use a different set of language, and probably I would change my vocal energy and my tone as well. The second piece is to know what my purpose is. Too many of us go into developing messages and just sharing everything we absolutely know about a topic. We say way too much. And so what I need to do when I'm developing a message is think, I'm only going to share what is absolutely necessary to share and no more. So I need to share what they need to know and not what they might want to know. Then it comes down to structure. Now I know who I'm speaking with. I know what my purpose is in speaking to them. How is it that I want to actually structure this message? What do I want to say first? What do I want to say in the middle? And how do I want to finish the message? And then finally is support. If we are trying to get people to buy into an idea, we're trying to convince or persuade them, or we simply want to build credibility with someone as we communicate in whatever form that might be, it has to be more than just my personal opinion. And so the more support that I can get from my message in the form of statistics and facts, maybe it's testimonials that I have from other clients that have worked with me, quotes, mission statements, anything that further supports the message that I'm trying to share, the more impactful and memorable it will be to the people who are listening to me. When a message is unorganized, this is what it feels like to your audience, whether it's you're speaking to one person or a group of people. They feel like you've given them a lot of important information, but now you're putting the onus on them to put it all together and make sense of it. And they're confused. They think, okay, he just shared all of this great information and I want to be able to do something with it, but I have no idea how it makes sense or how to put it together. So when we talk about message organization, instead of giving people something like this, what we want to do is give them something more like this. You want to give them a finished package so that it's easy for them to receive and they can act on whatever it is you are sharing with them immediately. It's a more pleasurable experience for the people that you're speaking or communicating with when you can give them a well-organized message. And then finally, at the top of that pyramid was interactions. Interactions range from informal to formal. On the informal side are things like text messages, emails are mostly informal, more so than they used to be, and then phone conversations. As we move toward formal, we have one-to-one settings. This could be a one-to-one conversation. More formal would be you coaching somebody one-on-one. Then we go one-to-group. And so now I have to manage and articulate my message to more than just a single person. And then finally, over there on the far right, the most formal would be settings that you are teaching in. So maybe things like CFSC, you're teaching other professionals, you're facilitating some type of workshop or a training, or you're up on stage and delivering a formal presentation to a large group of people. So those are all of what needs to be included for communication to be effective. You need to have strong presence, the physical and vocal skills. You have to have a well-organized message that makes sense to your listeners. The purpose is clear. There's a structure that's easy to follow along with, and you have supporting points. And then finally, you need to be able to take those two things and apply them in a meaningful way to whatever form of interaction you're using on that scale from informal to formal. Do you guys want to add anything before I go into the rules?
I do. I was waiting for Bigelow to make a comment about it. So the big thing that you said that I think I answer this question a lot for people is, well, how do I create something that I want to sell? How do I create a product? How do I create a course? Nobody wants to listen to what I have to say. And here's the thing is there aren't many new ideas anymore. A lot of this stuff has been discovered. You're not going to invent a new exercise. You're not going to invent a new way to do things. What you need to do is you need to connect dots based off of your reality and your experience that people haven't connected before. These come in the forms of what you were saying, Jenny, organization and systems. Like people are now buying systems and the organization of the system. Nothing that we do at the CFSC is anything super special. What is special is the way we've organized it and delivered it for people to consume. That's the beauty of the experience, not that we invented a squat or we invented a new way to do push-ups. It's the organization and the system that people are buying. And as we, Jenny, you can remind me the name of the book, The New Rules for something, about the way people are going to consume information over the next 50 years. It's that people are going to...
I think it's A Whole New Mind by Dan.
Yeah. A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink is that the way we're going to consume information now is not from just facts. It's the way that you use the facts and that it gets filtered. So what we may be now over the next 10, 15, 20 years is filters. People are going to pay us a lot of money to just filter information for them because there's so much information out there. People don't know what the hell to do with it. So you as a coach can actually get paid a lot of money to just filter information and organize information for people. So I think the organization piece, at least for me and where the world is going, not just fitness, but everything, I think that's very, very important. And I don't know if Kevin or Steve want to add anything to that now.
Well, I think your point is being a filter, and you don't necessarily have to be a filter for other fitness professionals. I think your job as a coach is to be a filter for your clients,
right,
first and foremost. So think about that in really what your job is. And that's why like when Jenny goes into the communication rules, like she made a good point. This could apply to professional education. It could apply to your clients in person. It could apply to the coaches that work for you and you manage and work with alongside every single day. So I think Brendan makes a good point just about that is really where it's at, being to be able to filter information and help people find the right resources.
I was going to say exactly what Kevin said, but he unmuted first.
Brendan, you make a good point about CFSC, and it's nothing revolutionary. Everybody knows all of the components that go into it already, but the fact that it's organized in a way that is so simple to consume and understand to a huge range of people is why it works. And so for anyone on this call, when you want, even if it's a social media post, I posted something the other week about, it's really a shift in mindset from not thinking about how can I make all of these people that I'm talking to think that I'm smart. It's how can I simplify what I want to say in a way that makes it a light bulb moment for them to understand. And that's the ability to organize a message. I work with people to create presentations from scratch, and that's the hardest thing to do, is to take all of what you know about a subject and be able to organize it and piece it together in a way to tell a story. Because everything that we remember is in a narrative format. There's always a background, an action piece of it, and then some type of result. And so instead of just dumping information at people, we have to connect it to them personally in a way that makes it easy for them to remember. And that's always first based in emotion, and then it's logic. Good, thanks, Brendan. Okay, let's get into the rules. First, know what you look and sound like. I gave this presentation to the NBSC staff a week or two ago, and I've changed a couple of these, and I moved this rule. This is new, actually, because I think this is the most important thing that most people do not do. If you can, starting tomorrow, put a video camera up and videotape yourself talking. If it's coaching, if you are just standing up to do a social video, or just choose a topic, set your phone up and record yourself speaking for 2 minutes. We do this in the communications trainings that I run with individuals and groups, and you would not believe how many tics you have that you weren't aware that you had, the amount of non-words or filler words that you use that you had no idea. Maybe you didn't realize your voice sounded a certain way, or that you finish everything with a question. People don't know these things, and you can only find them out if you have a really honest friend, which most people don't give people honest feedback when it comes to communication, or you set up the video camera and videotape yourself. When you do that, I would recommend videotaping for at least 2 minutes. When you are done, watch the video before you do any judging. Just watch it 5 times so that you can get used to hearing your voice, because that's the hardest part. You cannot observe yourself objectively if you're not comfortable watching yourself on a video. So before you make any objective observations, watch it a couple of times until your voice starts to sound natural to you. Once you do that, there's going to be a few things that you need to take note of. The first are the physical skills. So this goes back to the bottom of that pyramid, which was presence. I want you to look at 3 things. What were your eyes doing? Were they looking down? Were they all over the room as you were speaking? Were they looking up at the ceiling while you were gathering your thoughts? Just what were your eyes doing? Were you making eye contact with anybody as you spoke? The second thing you want to watch for is your hands. If you're standing up, what were your hands doing when you weren't gesturing? Were they closed off here in the middle? Were they behind your back? Were they on your hips? Was one hand in your pocket? And then while you were gesturing, how were you gesturing? Were they up and moving? Were they small gestures down below your waist? Again, the goal is to make an objective observation about your physical body language. And then the third is, how were you standing or moving? As you were speaking, was there some type of constant sway? A lot of us move our feet as we speak and we have no idea we're doing it. Or was I standing still? Was I shifted off onto one hip and then shifting into the other hip? How was I standing or moving? The next piece that you're going to evaluate is the other side of presence, which is your vocal skills. On a scale of 1 to 10, where was your volume at? A strong volume for perspective is somewhere around a 7 or an 8. So if you videotape yourself coaching to a group and you give yourself a volume of a 4 or a 5, you're too low. But rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. Where did your volume fall? And then what was your rate of speech? And that's easy. Was it slow, medium, or fast? If you listen to yourself and you judge yourself as a fast talker, there's another question you want to ask, and that is, do I sound energetic fast or do I sound nervous fast? Because we all have a pretty good ear for that, and there's a big difference between the two. And then finally, filler words. Did I use any filler words in my speech? And I'll talk about filler words down in the next few slides. So if you're going to do anything tomorrow, do this. Videotape yourself talking, pick a topic, or set a camera up as you coach. Then watch the video, which is the hardest part, and rate yourself objectively on what you were doing in the physical space and then on the vocal side as well. Rule number 2, dress like a professional. 2 things come to play with what you choose to wear, both in social media, at the gym, even when you're out in a social setting, if you were to maybe run into clients outside of the gym. What you wear tells people first how you think and feel about yourself. Your dress is a direct reflection of your self-image. So if you don't care a lot about yourself, your clothing probably says the same thing. Maybe you wear unwashed t-shirts, you wear ill-fitting clothing. Brendan will have something to say after this. The second piece is that it tells people how you think and feel about them. If you show up to coach your personal training client and you look disheveled, your hair is barely brushed, you smell bad, maybe you're wearing inappropriate clothing, it cues to them what you think about them. And you might think, I'm just being myself, I don't care what they think about me. But you have to care what these people think about you because they're the ones that are paying us. And if eventually they feel like you have no respect for them and that what you're wearing is distracting or inappropriate or something about your appearance is a turnoff to them, they will naturally gravitate away from you. So what you wear and how you look is either going to upgrade or downgrade the perceived value of what you have to say. With all else equal, if I have one person that's wearing clean clothes, they have their hair groomed, they look nice, their clothes are fitted, versus somebody who has equal skills and knowledge, and again, they're wearing baggy clothes and maybe there's stains on their shirt, or they're wearing not enough clothing, the person who looks like a professional, whatever they say will seem more credible than the person who does not. And I'm not saying that that's true or that's fair, because maybe it's not, but it is a fact of life, is that the person who looks more professional will always be perceived as such versus somebody who does not when all else is equal.
All right, can we discuss or add to both of these rules, please? All right.
You want me to finish with this and then you can come in?
What, all of the rules? Do you want to do all the rules and then we discuss one at a
No,
time?
I have a second piece for dress like a professional.
Oh, you do? I apologize. I interrupted. Continue, and then we'll go back to rule 1 and 2.
Yes. So to further define what it means to dress like a professional, professional does not mean expensive. I'm not telling you to go out and buy a bunch of brand new gym clothes or khaki pants and polos. It simply means that the clothes you choose to wear are clean and they fit you well. Your hair is groomed, you brush your teeth, and you wear deodorant. In a gym setting, we sometimes think like body odor isn't that big of a deal, but if you're a coach or a trainer and you are training people and you have body odor, it is unpleasant to be standing around you. And although it might not bother you, and that's fine, I can appreciate that, it does bother other people. And it's very unlikely that they're ever going to tell you that, because it is uncomfortable to confront somebody about a grooming habit. It's a very personal thing. So if you have a trusted friend, you should ask them, or do any of these stand out to you that I do? And at the end of the day, nothing about your appearance should distract from what you have to say. So if people are constantly commenting on what you're wearing or how you look, you're not listening so much to what you have to say. So dress so you're not distracting, and that everything that the way you coach and that you teach, it's all about the credibility of what you have to say versus how great your clothes look. Okay, Brendan.
Well, first of all, I think it all could be summed up with that one quote, that nothing about your appearance should distract you from your words. That's, if you were to put it in one soundbite, that would be it. I have admittedly have been the person with the stains on my shirt, the shirt that doesn't fit. Kevin actually at one point, and Marco, bought me a new wardrobe because they were so sick of seeing me walk around, because also admittedly I am very, very cheap and I refuse to spend money on clothes. So therefore my friends and now my lovely wife has decided that they'll take it into their own hands and buy clothes for me, either as gifts or when they see something that I'm wearing that they don't agree with. So I have great people in my life for that, which is why I mentioned at the beginning I am a pseudo fashion expert. it was in the beginning of my career. This was probably one of my biggest personal downfalls, was that I did not dress professionally. I would sometimes wear my pajamas to work, which one time I'll never forget. Sam Dad, Anthony Mirando, and Nicole Rodriguez had to take me into the office and tell me that it's not okay to wear your pajamas to the gym even if you're late. It was a 6 a.m. morning group. My alarm went off late. I had all these excuses. And from that day on, I never ever dressed poorly like that again. But I will say, in the first year of my career, when I was 22 years old, I didn't think it mattered. And hindsight, right? It does matter, especially if you're looking at this as a career. Kevin, you and I have had to have the odor discussion with interns before. Actually, not once, but probably 3-4 times.
I was going to bring that up.
I will let you elaborate on that one.
Well, the big thing, like Jenny said, is a lot of times nobody's going to tell the person, right? And you might think like, oh, how many people really stink? Like, this kid stunk. And everybody in the gym, clients, other employees, were all like, oh man, he stinks. And at some point, like, it was you, Bob, and I in the office were like, well, nobody's going to tell him. We have to tell him that he stinks. And he was so grateful that we told him, because he didn't know, but it made a huge difference, right? Because multiple people were dancing around that issue. And again, these sometimes to some people might seem like obvious things, but especially if you're running a business, are things you really do have to think about, whether it's bad breath or body odor, any of those things. These people are paying a lot of money to hang out with you for an hour, so they shouldn't have to hang out with someone that really stinks or has bad breath.
There's a difference between being authentically yourself and then running a service business that you need to make money in order to make a living. Like, I get the whole, like, dress as you please. I want to be myself. I don't want people to tell me what to do. But at the same time, yeah, you are providing a service. So I think we need to also address that. We need to separate the two. There's dressing at home and doing what you want to your body on your own time, and then there's running a business. So
I think something that also goes unsaid is there's an extreme in dress like a professional, and I feel like, being the woman on this call, I can talk about this, but there's this element now of wearing very little clothing, both men and women. And that is equally as distracting, and sometimes to some people offensive, when we choose not to wear very thin shirts, or maybe we don't wear shirts and we just wear sport bras and spandex. No matter how great your body is, if that's what your business that's the message that you want to send, then that's the right way to go about it. But if you are trying to look like a professional and elevate yourself and gain the respect of your colleagues and possibly get recognized in the field, dressing like that will not help. There are perceptions that people have that are based on what we wear. And again, those perceptions may not be fair, but they're there. And people aren't going to tell you. So I'm telling you, if you want to have a long career that step by step, your responsibilities increase, you get recognized, maybe you want to speak at conferences at some point, you need to start now and dress for the job you want. Because when you look at people that you respect in the field, they're not wearing those types of clothes, or they're wearing more clothes than you might be wearing now. And just keep that in mind, because our image is everywhere. And if people look up your name on social media and that's the perception they get of you, that sticks with them forever.
can we go back to 1, please?
Yeah.
Before we get too far ahead. I will say this, the watching yourself and listening to yourself is the number one way to get better at public speaking or podcasts. So I've listened to myself on every single podcast, and it is painful. I cannot stand my voice. I think I sound dumb. I don't like anything that I say. I wish I said it another way. I sit there with a pen and pencil and I write down all the possible filler words I can use, and then I make little marks. I remember one time I forget where I was flying to for a CFSC, and I was listening to a podcast I did with Anthony Renna on strengthcoach.com. And I don't use like, or right a lot, but I use so and I use a lot. And I probably said so 70 to 100 times in a 40-minute time span with Anthony Renna. And I was appalled. And we'll talk more about filler words later, but I would have never been aware of that unless I had marked down every single one that I had done in that podcast. Same thing with watching yourself on speaking. Kevin and I we filmed every single one of our mentorship talks when we started doing those when we were 23, 24. And doing more speaking doesn't necessarily make you better. Speaking and then reflecting on it and watching yourself and then speaking and improving upon what you did the first time is what makes you better. So it's not just more speaking, it's actually, everyone watches game film. Every good athlete that has ever been good at anything watches game film of themselves or game film of the other team. You have to watch game film of yourself as much as it sucks, and nobody likes it. So just get over it. Like, that's the big thing is everyone's like, oh, I hate listening to myself. Like, I can't stand it. Like, you just got to get over it or you'll never improve.
I think what I see the reason why a lot of us don't take the extra step to develop communication skills is because you don't hear about people getting fired from their jobs for not being able to speak well. That's usually not, unless they're really awful or they say something completely offensive, but people don't get fired for having poor communication skills, at least not often. And so it feels like, well, what's the point of developing them if it's not going to impact my career? But what you forget is that developing them now, if you look back 20 years from now, you are going to either celebrate that you started this process 20 years ago, or you're going to regret to a major degree not having taken the time to develop your ability to present and communicate. And when it comes between people deciding, whether it be through a job interview or clients deciding between you and another trainer, even if you are 1% better, James Clear actually wrote about this in his newsletter today. You are 1% better than the person that someone is comparing you with, you will get 100% of the reward. 1% better, you will get 100% of the reward. So if you think about it, if the majority of people have poor communication and speaking, they communicate poorly written, if you can get 1% better than them, you will get rewarded 100 times more than they will, just for getting a little bit better. That it? We good?
Good.
Okay.
I was just going to add one thing to I know we already just talked about it, but even though, like it said, when you read like Dress Like a Professional, you might be sitting there like, oh, like, yeah, of course. But I feel like there's always a lot of talk about people like, oh, people don't take our industry seriously. Well, you think about, like, you see someone in a suit. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you have to wear a suit, but you see someone in a suit, the connotation is confidence, is success, is something you can take seriously. So it's kind of the same idea. If you think about it, you transpose to us. If someone is wearing super baggy sweatpants or whatever, a shirt that's kind of ratty, it's the same idea from looking at it as a trainer's perspective. And obviously we talked about the best way to succeed in this industry is you have to think of it like a career. You have to think of it like you're the filter, you're the first line of healthcare. And one of the easiest ways to do that is simply to just upgrade your wardrobe and look more professional.
One of my favorite Mike Boyle quotes is, you don't see a lot of lawyers wearing cutoffs in the courtroom. It's true. Like, a lawyer
That's
doesn't
classic.
that.
they don't dress unprofessionally in a courtroom, right? They would immediately be disregarded and sent home. But yeah, so continue. Rule
Thank you.
3.
Love it. Rule 3, make eye contact. 2 things. When you are speaking, look at individuals. And if you are not the one speaking, look at the person speaking to you. I have individuals underlined here because I mean that literally. If you are coaching a group of people, or if you are on stage delivering a presentation to a group of people, as you speak, you should be having one-on-one conversations with individuals within the group. And each time you decide to move from this person to this person over here, you're going to stop your sentence with this person and pick up your next sentence with a person over here. A lot of us, when we speak to groups, whether we're coaching or giving a formal presentation, we do something called scanning, where our eyes just move from one person to the other, or we don't look at anybody in the eyes at all, and we just kind of look above their heads. We are not engaging with people when we do that, and we look disconnected. And so as you are speaking, find somebody to look at in the eyes. It will feel uncomfortable at first if you're not used to doing this, but if you do it consistently, within 2 or 3 weeks, you won't even notice, and you'll be doing it unconsciously. When other people are speaking to you, the greatest courtesy you can give them is to look at them. There's not much more to say about that. What are the benefits that you would experience if you were to look at individuals as you speak? You are going to look more confident. It will slow you down, it will calm your nerves, and it helps develop a connection with the people you're speaking with. Why does eye contact make me look more confident? Because people who lack confidence struggle to make eye contact. It is a telltale sign. It is a first sign of confidence. If you cannot make eye contact with people, the immediate reaction that other person has is this person is unsure of themselves. Even if you feel like that, if you feel nervous or if you're unsure of yourself, force yourself to make eye contact anyway. And then confidence will come as a result of the eye contact. Why does it slow you down? As I mentioned, if you are speaking to a group and you're speaking to one person at a time, once I finish with this person over here, I'm going to find a place to put a pause in silence as I transition my eye contact to the next person. As I build in those natural pauses, it creates a medium pace to my rate of speech, which slows me down and makes it easier to consume the information that I'm sharing with people. Eye contact calms our nerves. We are used to having one-on-one conversations. We speak one-on-one more so than we speak one to group. And so eye contact is a natural thing for most of us. And so if you can mimic that in a group setting, it will make you feel less nervous. And then finally, eye contact is the first way to engage with someone. I have to look at somebody in order to engage with them. And it starts the connection, and then the way that I share my message continues to build on and solidify that connection I make.
Can you show the eyes that are behind you?
Oh yeah. I use these, you're gonna think I'm a weirdo, but I have these eyes printed out. This is I made a tent out of paper, and I Googled set of eyes. When I practice for a presentation and I present a lot and I go and teach groups a lot, I set these up around my living room and I pretend like I'm speaking to people eye to eye. And so that way I can practice making eye contact.
So when you taught me this rule, I used Rain's stuffed animals. So I had 15 of Rain's stuffed animals all over the office, and I would deliver one sentence to each stuffed animal. And for me, it slowed me down. So like you said, when you give one sentence to one stuffed animal or one set of eyes, when you move to the next person, it forces you to pause. And pausing is one of the most awkward and difficult things to learn to do. But if you go one comment or one sentence to one person, for me, it slowed me down a lot.
Yeah, the silence when we speak, pausing in silence, if you are the one speaking, it feels like an eternity. That never goes away. As I've presented during this webinar, I've paused, and I've done so purposefully many times, and it feels like an eternity. But I know that you all, it hears very quickly. So you have to remember that although it feels uncomfortable for you to pause and not be saying anything, it hears very quickly to your audience, and it allows them to actually reflect on what you've said. If you don't pause, you're making them drink from a fire hose. You are giving them one thing after another, after another, after another, never giving them a moment to reflect and think about, how does what she just said, how does that relate to me? I can't do that because I have to now listen to what she's saying next, because she's not taking any breaks. All right, moving on.
Biggs, Kevin? Nothing? Good? Ah!
Kevin and Henrique, use body language. It is Henrique, right, Kevin? Yeah. Use strong body language. Kevin here on the right and then Henrique on the left. Both of them are exhibiting what I would call strong body language, and I'm going to explain why. We're going to start with Kevin's feet, and Henrique's are the same. Kevin is standing balanced. He has 50% of the weight in his left foot, 50% of the weight in his right foot. This is a posture of confidence. If he were shifted into his right hip, from a body language perspective, he would look less confident than he would if he were standing 50-50. So as you are speaking to people, as you are coaching, look down and where is your weight distributed? If you are more on one leg than the other, just balance up. Do your best as you deliver to stand 50-50. Now, obviously, if I have to move, I'm going to move my feet. But when I get to where I want to go, I'm always going to come back to 50-50 on both feet. Next, we're going to look at Kevin's hands. Kevin is gesturing, which is extremely important. We need to use our hands to paint a picture of what it is we're saying. You'll notice that his hands are up above his waist. So when I gesture, I need my hands to come up above my waist, and they are complementary to the words that I am saying. You'll also notice that his hands are open. This is an approachable gesturing method, as opposed to pointing with a finger. And I've also seen a lot of people gesture with a closed fist. Having an open hand is more confident looking, less condescending than it would be if I had a fist or I was pointing a finger. I would always encourage against using your finger. Now you'll notice the third thing on this image is Henrique has his arms down by his side. I call that the neutral position. When you are not gesturing, when your arms are not up and moving, you want them to fall all the way down and just rest naturally at your sides. When they want to gesture, because there's energy in your body that wants to come out as you speak, let them come up and do whatever it is they're going to do. And then when you hear yourself not speaking, you're going to let them fall down to your sides like Henrique is showing us and leave them there. Having my arms down by my sides is a very uncomfortable position to be in, and it will be for all of you as well if you don't do it often. And it's simply because we've trained ourselves to have our hands inside. We all hold our cell phones right here in front of us. And so my muscle memory has my arms glued to my sides and my hands in front. So you'll notice most people standing, when they're not gesturing, their hands are somewhere just locked up here in the middle. The problem is this looks protective. It's not as open of a body language and approachable as it would be to have my arms down by my sides. And then the last point I want to make is, why do you want to gesture above your waist? The words are coming out of my mouth. I want to draw people's attention up toward my face, because that's where the words are coming out. That is where the effect is that's on my face. When we have our arms down and we gesture below the belt, people's attention is drawn down below the belt and there's nothing interesting going on there. So when you want to gesture, let your arms come up and work above your waist.
I hope this didn't inflate Kevin's ego too much.
It
We'll
was
have-
perfect, Kevin.
We'll have to cut him down in the next few slides.
Please do.
Okay. Here are some examples of what I would call poor or weak body language. Over there on the left is Scott. Scott has his hands in his pockets. He's kind of shifted onto his left hip. And if you look at this as compared to going back and looking at Kevin and Henrique, he looks disengaged, he looks uninterested, and maybe even a little bit unsure of himself. So we don't want to do that. Then we move over here to the woman second from the left. She's standing off on the one hip, as I've been talking about. She has her arm on her side and her other arm down. Without looking at her facial expression, the body language also tells me that she's either bored, she's uninterested, she's not listening if you're speaking to her. So we don't want to do that. The third gentleman, he's balanced. His feet are great, but his arms are crossed here in the middle. And you'll notice that he's trying to gesture, but when our arms are crossed in front of us, the gestures are small because I don't want to leave this protective feeling with my arms at my sides. So we don't want to do that. We want to let our arms fall all the way down. And then finally, this gentleman on the right, this is probably most common, and pick your poison, whatever you hold in your hands. It could be a pen that you click. Maybe you hold onto a clipboard. It could be a water bottle. Maybe it's a stopwatch. When we have something in our hands, I'm holding a clicker here to use this presentation, we naturally want to play with it and do something with it. That, when you look at that gentleman in that picture though, he looks nervous. And if he's moving around with that water bottle as he's speaking to us, we would all be distracted by that. But he probably has no idea that he's doing it. So we don't want to do that. Again, going back, this is ideal body language. This is strong, confident body language, whether you're in a formal presentation setting or you're standing and coaching a group or an individual. Okay, next. Rule number 5, speak up. So now we're away from the physical side, and this is in regards to the vocals. Think about somebody that you respect or that you think is a powerful person. And I don't mean powerful, well, it could be even, you think about dictators in history, they've all done these things. People, powerful people and confident people, they speak slowly, they enunciate their words, as you've heard me do, or they articulate their words so that they're not misunderstood. There's no slurring of my words. They express themselves loudly, again, in that 7 to 8 range on a scale of 1 to 10, and they express themselves confidently. And that comes back to the body language we talked about. When it comes to volume, of the hundreds of people that I've coached professionally, I have only told one person that he was too loud, and that was Brendan Rearick. I have a quick story that everyone's gonna love. I was on a plane with Brendan. I was sitting in the seat. Brendan is by the window, and I have a woman over to my right. Brendan is talking to me, and he is right next to me. Brendan speaks loudly. The woman leans over 30 minutes later, and she says, "Excuse me, do you know that guy? Can you please tell him to stop talking so loudly? I think the entire plane can hear him."
And then she took 2 Tylenol and had to get an ice pack.
She was in bad shape.
She is not, she is not feeling good, and I did not help. But true story.
But I would err on the side of being too loud versus too soft. When you speak too softly, you don't sound confident in what you're saying. You're more likely to use filler words. People can't hear you, and then they stop listening to you altogether. So a good rule of thumb is if you are in front of a group, whether you're coaching or you're giving a presentation, project your voice to the farthest person away from you. If you know for a fact that the person in the back of the group can hear very clearly what you are saying, your volume is in the right place. And another thing is that if you don't feel uncomfortable by the level of your volume, it's probably not loud enough. Because our one-to-one volume is comfortable for us. And so if you're projecting your voice and it feels very similar to how you feel when you're speaking one-on-one, it's not loud enough. So get slightly uncomfortable, speak at a level that feels uncomfortable for you.
One of the best things I think people can do is listen or watch other speakers and notice these things. So if you watch, for example, like Obama's speeches are online, Clinton's speeches are online, Churchill has a lot of speeches where you can listen to him, and he speaks the slowest out of anyone you've ever listened to, but it's incredibly powerful. TED Talks,
in the
right?
industry, though.
The best TED Talks, but yeah, even in the industry, like look at the people who are speaking at keynotes and just take note of the words they're using, how they speak. Gray Cook might be the best speaker. Mark Verstegen, especially when we're speaking to these four things. So yeah, watch other people too. Again, watch game film on others.
Right, but even think about coaches that you admire and respect and that you think are great coaches. I would bet all my money that they do these things. Any coach that you admire does these things.
Yeah.
Reasons to speak up. You want to coach or project yourself in the way that you expect people to engage with you. And so if you are soft-spoken, if you have closed body language, or if you're easily distracted as you're coaching or speaking, your group or the people that you're interacting with are going to bring that exact same energy. So if you ever are coaching and you're asking yourself, wow, everyone seems disengaged, it doesn't seem like they want to be here, they're not laughing at my jokes, it's probably because you're giving them that same energy. So in those moments, think about, can I project my volume more? Can I articulate or speak slower? Can I fix my posture in some way that will make me appear more confident and engaging with them? But whatever you bring is what you're going to get. So if you're quiet and unsure of yourself, all of the people that are in your group are going to feel the same way. Rule number 6, eliminate filler words. On the left, you see the most common filler words we hear. Like, you know, so, and right. When you use filler words, you sound unsure of what you are saying, you sound nervous, and simply stated, you don't sound smart. Filler words, if they're not helping, they don't add any value to what you are saying, and so essentially they're hurting you. What we want to do is eliminate filler words from our speech and instead just choose to be silent as we think about what we want to say. When we decide what we want to say, we just start right in with it, as opposed to using a lead-in such as so, or finishing every sentence with you know. Ask yourself, if you watch a presentation and the presenter finishes a couple of sentences with you know, you have to ask yourself, what they're asking is if the audience understands what they are saying. But if they were truly interested in the audience telling them if they understood the message, after asking, you know, I would pause in silence as I wait for my audience to respond to me to say, yes, I know. But speakers don't do that. So I'll talk at the end of the presentation today when we get into filler. I'll do another slide on filler words about what you can do to start working on eliminating them from your speech. One thing I want to say, public speaking training, I think, has gotten a rap about you cannot say any filler words. That is not true. Filler words are also a natural part of our speech, and they play a role in one-on-one conversations. Because when I'm in a one-on-one conversation, I use filler words to tell the person that I am speaking with that I am not done speaking. Because if I just take a long pause in silence, in a one-on-one conversation, it's likely that the person I am speaking with will see that as an opportunity for them to jump in and begin speaking. So in a one-on-one conversation, filler words are okay. They kind of hold your place in line as you speak. But if I'm coaching or presenting to a group of people, I do not need to hold a place in line. I can be silent. When I am silent in a presentation or during coaching, someone is not going to jump in and start coaching for me or start delivering my presentation. Okay, rule number 7, learn how to listen. Matthew McKay, who's an author, says that listening is 2 things. I love this. It's a commitment, It's a commitment and it's a compliment. It is a commitment to understanding other people. We listen to understand. And it is a compliment because when we listen to people, it tells them, without using any words, that I care about you and I want to hear what you have to say. When I give people the compliment of listening, they return to me their appreciation and they like me more. We like people who listen to us. Think about when you're in a moment of stress or you have an emergency going on. Think of the person that you like to call first. I'll bet that it's a person who listens really well because you know that you're going to have a safe space to be heard and that they will be interested in uncovering more about whatever it is you are sharing with them. Listening is not just simply sitting quiet as someone speaks to me, because a corpse could do that. That's not listening. What that is pseudo listening. A lot of us do pseudo listening, myself included. I'm working on getting better at it. But what is pseudo listening? There are 3 ways that we pseudo listen. The first is that we fake interest. We listen because we think to ourselves, if I pretend to be interested in what this person is saying, they're going to like me. And we all want to be liked. So we're not truly interested in what they're saying. We're just faking it so that they like us. The second way we pseudo listen, we listen for one specific piece of information. Instead of listening to the entirety of what that person is saying, we're likely distracted or daydreaming. And then when they get to a certain part that we think we're going to find interesting, we tune in and actively listen. And as soon as they are done saying that piece, again, we check out. The third form of pseudo listening, or the reason why we do it, is we pretend to listen so that they can then listen to us. I'm just going to listen to them for a few minutes because then it'll be my turn and I really want them to listen to me. But that's not listening. We have to actively listen. And I'm sure you've all heard about active listening, but there are 3 parts of active listening. There's paraphrasing, clarifying, and giving feedback. When I listen to somebody, I need to listen in a way that if they were to ask me at the end, can you tell me what I just said? I would be able to paraphrase back to them in my own words what I heard them say. If you cannot, and if you don't remember what they said, then you weren't listening. Another reason why we want to, whether they're going to ask us if we heard them or not, a reason why you want to pretend like you're going to be asked is because giving yourself the challenge of paraphrasing forces you to stay focused on that person while they speak and not get drawn off into tangents on things that they say. Because a lot of times when people speak to us, something that they say triggers a thought in our head, and then all of a sudden we're in our own heads thinking about a situation that we were in that was similar, or maybe it triggers an entire thought pattern. But as we're thinking through that, we're not listening to them. once they are done speaking, we need to ask clarifying questions. People never give us the full story. There is always more that we can uncover when people are talking to us. And those are questions like, what did it feel like to experience that? How did your kids react? How are you making this decision to move? Anything to uncover more about what it is they are telling you. And then finally, when they're done speaking and when you've gotten the clarity that you need, to give feedback, which is, this is how I feel about what you've told me, or this is the emotion that came forward for me when I heard it, or this is the advice that I would give myself if I were you. Anything about listening? Brendan, Kevin?
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's very easy to remember, guys. This isn't about. It is, but it's not. The title isn't just presentation skills; it's communication skills. And this rule number 7 itself, if you can't figure out how to do this, then you're not going to be able to figure out how to then give your communication, because you're not going to know how to answer the questions that people are asking. So this might be the most, to me, it might be the most important one. So it's very important that you really, really think and audit your ability to have conversation. And when I say have conversation, I mean it's a two-way street, not you talking at people, but being able to also listen and understanding their points of view and things, so that you can then create what you need to say and say it properly.
Jenny, can you do the catch and bring up the catch analogy?
Yeah.
You'll say it better than me.
If we take, this is specific to listening, but as Steve is saying, when we speak with people in whatever form that is, an analogy is like it's a game of throw and catch, right? So I throw somebody the ball, there is time in the air that the ball has to get there, so there's space there, and then the person has to catch it, which is when they receive it, and they get their time then to think about how they want to react to what I say, or if they want to add anything, and then they throw it back to me. Too many times, and I'm sure you can all think back to a person that you've spoken to where it felt like you were talking to a wall. We have to develop our ability to have conversations, even if you're not, I don't enjoy small talk, but you have to be good at small talk, because small talk is what leads to conversations about things that matter. You can't go and meet someone new and all of a sudden have these thought-provoking conversations. They all start with small talk. So if you cannot get comfortable with the back and forth and it is sometimes shallowness of it, while you get in sync with one another and you develop a conversation rhythm, you're never going to reach the types of relationships with the people that you probably never thought you could have relationships with. Everyone that you're speaking to has something to teach you, good or bad, but they are leading a life that you have no idea about. And so there are always questions to ask people. And I think too many of us don't take the lead in asking other people questions. We're too busy waiting for somebody to ask us a question and to tell them about us. If you are the first one to ask questions and you're probing somebody and you're truly interested in trying to learn about them, they will return the favor and then be interested in you, which is what you wanted in the first place. So just take the initiative and be the one who does it first.
I always think of that analogy when I'm getting in a conversation with somebody that I might not know or somebody new, is that it's a game of catch. And sometimes people like to only play catch with themselves. Sometimes people suck at throwing the ball. Sometimes people suck at catching the ball. And sometimes it's up to you to either teach them how to throw the ball or make it easier for them and throw it underhand. So like there's a whole bunch of analogies that come out of playing catch. But the idea of that, like you said, there's this time in between where it's like you go, I go. And if you've ever played a good game of catch, it's rhythmic. You go back and forth. Each of you get your own time. And then when you get better at it, you can go further back. You can throw it harder. So I just love that analogy. If you ever get into a conversation with someone and you're like, how do I get through to this person? Or like, this is going to be super awkward. Just think of it as you're trying to play a game of catch with them.
And it actually made me think of a really good point when you think about personal training, because we talk to our trainers about this all the time. There's some clients you have to throw the ball a lot more, and there's some clients where you're just catching the ball for an hour straight.
Yep.
And like, because sometimes like the group training is easy from a standpoint that like it's more of a entertainment, it's more of a show, because you have a group that's a willing listening group and you're trying to entertain all of them and communicate with all of them. When it's one-on-one and their personality might not mesh like yours, you either have to learn how to start conversation and be someone who can, listen to them and hear, okay, what'll get them to speak and what are they interested in? Or maybe that client is just someone who wants to talk today. Like I have some people who it's just me listening to them and then providing a little bit back and then listening for another 10 straight minutes. And as a one-on-one personal trainer, that's a real skill to be able to do. Because I know, like, thinking about Steve's clients or my clients, I think we could think about the people we train in the gym, and it's a completely different experience hour to hour, and your communication skills have to be flexible in that.
That's a great point. And really your questioning skills, too many of us don't develop our library of questions that we are asking people. And a lot of that just simply comes from because we don't put ourselves in the mindset of being interested in other people. You have to tell yourself that these people, no matter how maybe boring they seem on the outside or unhappy they seem, there's something in there that I can find that's interesting. And I just have to ask enough questions in a way that's comfortable for them to find it. And then you feel invested in them, and maybe you can uncover something that you share that you can then begin to converse together. But if your client is not taking the lead on doing that, then you have to take the lead on doing that and just be okay with being uncomfortable and awkward in the beginning, knowing that that will go away. Rule number 8, this is a great segue into rule number 8. Make others feel important. The best career advice I ever received was from my high school theology teacher, actually. And he said, treat everyone you meet like they're the most important person in the world. It is a mindset first, and then it is an action when we talk about making other people feel important. No matter what I do, if I do not truly believe that this person in this moment is the most important thing, it won't matter what I do because it won't be genuine. And it is true, when you are speaking to someone, that is your world in that moment, and you need to make them feel like such. And so it's a mindset first, telling yourself, convincing yourself that this person is extremely important to me. Once you do that, and then we can move into the action. For the action, I like to use Brian Tracy, who's a best-selling author and speaker. He says there's 6 A's, and these are the 6 A's to making someone feel important. There's acceptance, appreciation, admiration, approval, attention, and then agreement. And I'll talk about what each of these is. First is acceptance. We all want to be accepted. That is a universal thing. None of you can tell me that you don't want to be accepted. How do we do this? When people come into the gym, or when we see them in some setting, whenever they speak or when they leave, we want to look directly at them, acknowledge them, and smile or say something. For people to feel accepted, they need to be looked at. It's a physical action, because then it shows that you're engaging with them. You're not just waving at them as you're talking to somebody else. Look at them, say goodbye or say hello, and do this whether it's their first day in the gym or they've been coming and training with you for the last 5 years. Every time they come in, hello, how are you? It's good to see you. When they speak, don't speak over them. Don't interrupt them. Let them speak and look at them and listen. Second is appreciation. Say thank you for anything that they do or say that is helpful to you. What can that look like? It could be as simple as, thanks for putting away the kettlebells. or thanks for helping put away the kettlebells. It might seem trivial, but someone put effort into doing that, and for you to recognize that effort and show appreciation will make them feel important. Number 3, admiration. Find any chance you get to compliment them on something they do, something they say, or maybe they're wearing new clothes or they've gotten new shoes. Any reason you have, try and find a way to genuinely compliment them. A principle or a rule that I follow in my own life is that I say, anytime I see something beautiful in somebody, I tell them. Even if it's a stranger. I compliment people at the grocery store all the time. And there has not been one person that hasn't smiled and been so appreciative from a random compliment. And it makes you feel good. If you're not someone who gives compliments often, start doing it and you'd be amazed at how good it makes you feel on the inside to make someone else feel noticed. This can also sound like you do a great job making everyone in the group, everyone feel like they're a part of the group. Again, you admire something about somebody and you're noticing that they're doing it. Number 4 is approval. Give praise and approval and make it immediate and specific. So in a gym setting, it could look like, great work on your hang cleans today. They looked much faster than last week. So I'm giving them something immediate and I'm specifically calling out their hang cleans as opposed to saying, great job today, which is general and vague. What did they do a great job of? Did they do a great job in the sprints? Did you appreciate that they were helping the other people in the group during bench pressing today? What specifically did they do, and make it immediate? Number 5 is attention. Again, we all want attention. It's why we tell stories. It's why we join community. Everything that we do is in an effort to feel valued by the people that we surround ourselves with. We can do that for somebody else by listening closely, making eye contact as they're speaking, nodding to let them know we're paying attention, smiling, and just generally being interested, which goes back to what we've covered in listening. And then number 6 is agreement. Be generally agreeable, and if you absolutely need to disagree, only do so after having acknowledged what they said. This to me might be the most important. I know many people that are generally disagreeable, and I can tell you that people don't like disagreeable people. Now, don't mistake that for me saying that I don't think you should have an opinion. I think you should, but anytime that you are able to agree without hurting your pride or overstepping a principle or value that you hold, agree, because it's not doing you any harm and it will strengthen the relationship that you have with whomever you're interacting with. And if you need to disagree, we first need to acknowledge the other person's point of view, that they have the right to their own opinion, and that you can appreciate that they had the courage to share that with you, and then you can share your own opinion. Do you guys want to say anything about these, make other people feel important?
Just going back to like coaching interactions, one thing I remember Brendan and I saying to interns, like when we were running the internship, was like, always find like positive comments to say to say to your athlete every single day, even if they're little things. Because especially with some of the high school kids, like you realize like you want this to be the best part of their day. And it's the same with the personal clients. There's always something that you can shine a light on to, brighten their day, or even if it's an athlete, they're like a terrible athlete, like they're like brand new, they're not coordinated. You can think of some of the kids in Steve's middle school group, maybe, right? But you can probably find something that say, hey man, that hang clean looks great today, or like, hey, like, did you get a little bit bigger? It looks like you put some muscle on. Like those little things, those things light them up, and it might seem like a small comment to you, but that might get them to really buy into the process, or start that path of them being like a lifelong customer. So you always want to think like, what is one positive comment I can make that's a real one? You don't want to, people know when you're shoveling shit at them. We want it to be authentic. But sometimes in the rush of coaching, when you got a million kids in a middle school group, it can be hard sometimes to think, okay, I'm going to make sure I have my one face-to-face interaction with this kid where I give them some positive feedback on their day. Because so much of what we do in coaching is criticism. Even if it's positive criticism, we're always correcting things. And for so many athletes that come in, they might take that as, oh, I had a terrible day today. The coach told me all the things I did wrong. When in reality, we're probably just trying to improve what they're doing.
Nailed it.
Thank you, Kevin. Rule number 9, tell the truth. When you don't know the answer to something, when you can't give somebody what they need, or when you make a mistake, say so. This seems obvious, but I can think about times when I've answered questions that I didn't know the answer to. And looking back, that's the worst possible thing you can do. And I love this quote by Mark Twain: if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. I think that speaks maybe more on the personal side of telling the truth, but people will respect you more when you say you don't know versus making up an answer and then them possibly finding out later that what you told them was not true. If you get asked a question and you do not know the answer, or you cannot help someone in the way that you know they need to be helped, just say so, but don't leave it at that. Either go find the answer to the question and make sure you get their contact information so that you can follow up with them, or refer them to somebody that you trust if you know that you can't offer them the services that they need. And then when you make a mistake, own it. The best thing you can do is own your mistake as soon as possible. That's how you will gain respect and trust. It takes forever to build trust with other people, but it takes a moment to ruin all of it. And once trust is gone once, it's very hard to get back. So, and a lot of weight and appreciation needs to be put into this rule. And also, if that's not reason enough, people don't like liars. So be honest, own it. And then rule number 10, write and present more. If you do more writing and you do more presenting, even if it means you're in your living room talking to your stuffed animals, you will think more clearly, you will learn more in the process of doing so, and all of those things will make you smarter. You get smarter by writing things and by presenting on things. And as Jordan Peterson says, if you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. The ability to think and speak and write, they all go hand in hand, and they make you unstoppable. You can share all of the knowledge you know, people respect you, they want to listen to you. And I'm telling you from experience, natural speakers and people who write well, yes, there are a few, but it is not an inborn quality. You can develop the ability to write and speak well. Anybody can. There's another quote that's, everyone's a disaster before they're a master. We all have to be bad before we can be good. So your first one will be bad. Your 100th will be great. You just have to put in the reps. But as Brendan mentioned earlier, it's not just about doing more reps. You also have to know how to practice perfectly, or know what you're working toward, because otherwise you're just practicing the skills imperfectly. And so learn how to communicate effectively from a coach, from a course, reading books, and then put those skills in one at a time and develop your ability to do them better. Get feedback from people you trust. Watch people that you admire and respect coach and present. And start now, no matter where you're at in your career, whether you think you have something to say or not. And the great thing about this is that if you go to write an article and it's really bad, I'm sure nobody's reading any of your stuff yet, so it won't matter. Maybe 5 people will read it, but at least you're getting in the practice. Because then by the time you do your 100th or several hundred articles, you've probably gotten more of a following, and now you're writing well and people are enjoying what you have to say.
Writing articles was huge for me because it forced me to do research that I would not have done if I hadn't agreed or decided I was going to write an article on it. So from my experience, I knew of these things and I could write about them, but in order to back up my experience, I had to do further research that I wouldn't have done unless I had agreed or decided I was going to write something about it. Because when you put it out there like that for other people to read, it's going to be under scrutiny. So therefore, you better do your due diligence to back it up. So the act of writing or putting something out there. So the book that I'm working on, same thing. Like I've done more research in the last, and Kevin, I know you just worked on your stuff, that in the last 3 months than I had done in the previous 2 years, because when I started writing again, it forced me to have to back up what I'm saying with what other people say, back up with science, stuff like that. So writing has been huge. Presenting too, but more for me personally, writing has done that. And also, I'll add the quote: "When one teaches, two people learn." So the CFSC, I've learned so much from coaching other coaches, like just people who work with different populations. They have different backgrounds. They have different cues. I've taken a lot of new cues from people, new ways to do exercises. Just from me teaching a CFSC, I learned from all 12 people in the room. So that's been huge as well. Kevin, Steve, anything to add?
Okay, so here are the 10 rules in summary. Know what you look and sound like. Record yourself presenting. Dress like a professional. Make eye contact with individuals. Use strong body language. Speak up. Work on eliminating your filler words. Learn how to listen and to have fruitful conversations, that game of throw and catch. Make other people feel important. Tell the truth and write and present more. I know that there was also a survey with the webinar, and that was, what communication skills do you need to work on most? Some of what I took you through in this presentation may have answered those questions, but I have a slide or two here for each of the responses that you were able to choose from. And this might generate some more conversation, which I'm looking forward to. The first is tough conversations, which we had 40% of people say they struggle with the most. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the dynamics of tough conversations, and then maybe we can hear what the boys have to say. The first thing I want to say is tough conversations, we don't want to make them not tough. The goal is not to make them easy. Tough conversations are necessary in life, and they'll happen a lot. So they're not something to be afraid of, but what we do need to do is understand all of the components of what makes it a tough conversation, and then be at our very best when it comes to participating in it, no matter where the other person is in their process. So when we think about a tough conversation, it typically involves two people. It's you and them, whether that's one single person or maybe it's a group. And the reason why it's a tough conversation is because both of you had expectations. So you had expectations of them, they had expectations of you, and at some point, someone didn't meet the expectations. So there's a struggle there now. And somebody is upset, or you burned them in some way, or you did something that was out of the realm of what they thought you could do, but they feel let down in some way. They had this idea of you, and now it doesn't look so much like that. There is something called transactional analysis that is a theory in psychology by Eric Berne. And essentially what it says is that when we communicate at all times, we are in one of three ego states. Now, bear with me because this is theory, but as I explain it, I'm hoping you'll be able to understand how or when you find yourself in one of these three states. The first is the parent state. When we communicate from a parent state, we do so in a way that's based in commands and value judgments. So we hear the word should a lot if we're communicating from a parent state. You should be doing this. Why didn't you do that? Can you please do this? It's a way that we would typically hear our parents communicate with us as children. And we do this to other adults, especially maybe your employer does this to you. The second is when you communicate from a child state. When you're communicating from a child state, your communication is full of emotion and energy. And it typically involves sentences that start with, I wish, or I hate, or I don't like, or why do I have to do this? So it feels like whining, and it's very almost, what do I want to say? It passed me. If I think of it, I'll come back to it. And then the third is the adult, which is ideal. So when we speak from our adult state, we're being direct and straight. We make objective observations that start with, it sounds to me like this, or I see this happening, which is objective. Or I take ownership of how I feel. I feel like this. Or I try to uncover more because I don't have a full understanding of what's going on. So I might say, tell me more about this. When it comes to tough conversations, you need to be in the adult state of mind. You cannot be feeling like you need to communicate with them in a condescending way, like you should be doing this and why didn't you do that? You need to find your way to being an adult, whether they are interacting with you from a parent, a child, or an adult standpoint, because you cannot control what ego state they come into this conversation with, but you can control your own. Now, to do that, you need to give yourself time to appreciate what your true feelings are or what you observed about a situation and how you feel about it. You need to be sure that you are calm and that the conversation is not being led by emotion, which almost never ends well. So taking time and not rushing these conversations. Before you have a tough conversation, if you are the one who is going to lead it, there are two questions that you need to ask and answer. What is the problem? From my perspective, how would I define what the problem is without judging what the other person is doing, just from an objective standpoint? What did I observe or feel about what happened that has now become this problem? Or how did they not live up to these expectations that I have? The second is, what do I believe the other person thinks is the problem? Not only do I need to understand my perspective, I need to have an idea of where this other person is coming from too, so that I can be better prepared for the conversation. If you cannot answer or you're not sure what the other person thinks the problem is, just ask them. So that would be a part of the conversation then. There are two, so you're either going to be leading the tough conversation or you're going to be on the receiving end. And here are the very high level, the order of operations that a tough conversation would happen in. The most important part is that if you are leading a tough conversation, you don't want to sugarcoat it. We need to put the direct message up front. So once you find a time to talk to this person, you need to start right with your objective observation of what happened. So I see that this happened. It made me feel this way. And because of it, I want this to happen, or I make a request. Can you do this? It's an objective observation about what you saw. I express a feeling that is an emotion without any blame. So instead of saying, you made me feel stupid, I just say, I felt stupid. It's different because I'm not blaming them for the way I felt. And then I make a direct and specific request for how I would like things to move forward. Once I do that and they respond, I need to I need to actively listen and do all the things that we talked about in the active listening rule. It's then helpful to paraphrase what they said or how they responded to me leading this conversation. And then we need to figure out a way that we're going to move forward that's going to work for both of us. And sometimes that means maybe we're not going to work together anymore. That might be the best way forward. But things need to change so that you don't have to have this same conversation again. And it needs to be something that both parties can agree to and that they think they're capable of doing. And then if you're on the receiving end of a tough conversation, the first thing you need to do is to actively listen. I need to give the person space to say what they need to say. I can then paraphrase what I heard them say. And just because I paraphrase does not mean I agree with what they say. I'm simply stating this is what I heard. I then can give my response. When we are on the receiving end of a tough conversation, it typically comes in the form of a critique in some way. Now, some of them, I might agree with all of what they said. I might agree with none of what they said. But I don't want to get defensive. So how can I respond to critique in a way that keeps me involved and the conversation at a level that's emotionally stable for both people? If I agree with the critique, if they say something to me and I think, wow, they're absolutely right, I did that, I can acknowledge in full. Yes, you are right, I did that. Or I can do something called clouding, which is if I agree with part of what they said, but I don't necessarily agree with all of it, I'm just simply going to acknowledge only the part that I agree with and say, yes, it could be true that I did this. And so moving forward, I do this. But I don't have to defend myself against every critique they gave me. But I want to find the opportunity to say, okay, what about what they are saying is true, and acknowledge that there is truth in what they are saying. And then the third thing is that if you're completely blindsided by a tough conversation and you're really not understanding where it's coming from, you need to ask probing questions. If you are emotionally stable and you can continue to participate in the conversation, you need to figure out where is this coming from, and doing so from a curious state of mind. And then finally, again, once you get the problem out in the air and you both said your piece, again, deciding how are we going to move forward. Okay. This goes hand in hand with what people say is difficult clients, or communicating with difficult clients. I wrote an article that I'll talk about when we close this out, but there are a lot of people in our life, everyone outside of ourselves, they have their own desires, needs, and it surprises us that people have those. And so we feel a negative reaction when they say something that wasn't expected, or we disagree with something they say. But we need to be able to have those types of conversations from a stable emotional place, because these are people that are essentially paying us, for the most part, if they're clients, to work with. And if we want to continue working with them, we need to have these conversations so that we can move forward. And if there are coworkers, we need to have them so that we can come to work and enjoy the place that we work and it not be a place of conflict.
Two books that I highly recommend on this subject is Crucial Conversations, which for me was really important because I'm not very good at the confrontation part. And Crucial Conversations, the biggest thing is that you don't want to let the conversation that should have happened yesterday last 2 weeks, 3 weeks before it happens, because a lot can happen in between that's usually not good. So it's better to have it sooner than later. So yes, there is a grace period where you need to collect your thoughts, make some decisions, and address some of the problems before you speak to that person. But it's better to have it happen sooner than later. And that's the number one thing I think I see rips teams apart too. That there are people that needed to speak or have a crucial conversation 2 months ago, and we're 2 months too late to even salvage anything. And the other book is Five Dysfunctions of a Team, which talks about the same thing, is that the conversations, the tough conversations need to happen in this room right now. We don't need to adjourn the meeting and then have the conversation a week from now and wait while everybody goes crazy trying to figure out, well, what's this person going to do? Is there, like, I don't know what to think. And then they gossip about each other, and it's just a shit show for the whole week until you have the conversation. It's better to have it right there than in the room. So Crucial Conversations and Five Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Those two books for tough conversations, in my opinion, are the two best out there. And for, like you were saying, dealing with not just one-on-one conversations, but in a team setting, having tough conversations. And I know, Steve, that in the MBSC staff meetings, that this has been a topic of discussion before, where Mike asked everybody to be more confrontational and more conversational over the last year.
Let me. I kind of want to go talk about the right side, the receiving end here. Right side meaning right side on this slide. Not morally right. I think another thing. So one about tough conversations in general. Both good books, but the books themselves aren't going to help. You need to also have those conversations. Right. That's the number one thing.
Right.
And they're, even when you're good at them, they're probably still going to feel a little awkward. So just know that going into it, that's just part of it. And the more you do, the better you're going to be able to handle that kind of awkwardness and know that you're coming from it. Because as long as you're coming from it, or coming from a place of, said, correctness or positivity, that's what you can hang your hat on. Even if the person on the receiving end handles it negatively, if you know that you're not, yes, maybe you didn't go about it as perfectly as you could have, but as long as you're going about it from the right standpoint and viewpoint, then that's what you have to like build upon and go from there. On the receiving end, in terms of being on that opposite side, maybe you're getting yelled at for getting in trouble or for whatever it is. It's the same idea. You need to think of it not from like you're a victim standpoint, but from a, hey, like just like any other listening example, you need to be able to empathize and put yourself in the speaker's shoes as well to realize where they're coming from. Maybe it's not 100% right, but you have to be able to understand that. And that's kind of like where Jenny was talking about emotion without blame. Like, don't just assume because you're on the wrong end of a tough conversation that person doesn't like you, or that person just wants to yell at you because of this. So you have to be able to kind of think of it as I guess we talked about before, a two-way street. It's the same idea. It's probably a game of catch with a wall between you because it's a harder game, but it's the same ideas as everything that's been built on. It's just a little bit more of an emotional situation.
Right. Yeah. And Steve, from what you said too, I don't think we give ourselves enough power to be in control during tough conversations. For instance, if somebody approaches you and they're yelling at you and they're angry, it is okay. And I would encourage you to say, I'm having a hard time listening to you because you're yelling at me. And so I'm feeling defensive and I'm not going to be able to respond to you right now because I'm feeling defensive. We don't take enough ownership that we can stand up and say, okay, I thought I could have this conversation right now, but now I'm starting to feel emotional and I know myself and I know I'm going to maybe say something I don't want to say, or I'm going to make a decision I didn't want to make. And so can we pause this conversation and maybe pick it back up tomorrow so that I can just calm down, because I want to make this better, but I'm feeling too emotional. We need to be aware of what state we're in as we're participating, whether we're giving or receiving, and take ownership of that and let the other person know so that they know that our priority is still to salvage the relationship versus win the argument. Okay, the next piece on the webinar survey was written communications, which a few of you said that you'd like to improve on. A few high-level things about written communication. When you write, the goal, the number one goal should always be to make your writing reader-friendly. What does that mean? That means that you are able to share your message without taxing the reader. So they understand the words you're using. It's written in a way with sentence structure that makes sense. There's no extra work they have to do in order to consume it. There's no words that are unnecessary that are there just for fluff. Some principles for writing. Simple and direct is impressive. I think people tend to think that it has to be long and complex for it to be impressive, and it's quite the opposite. Simple and direct is impressive. The words that you choose not to use are always going to be more important than the words you choose to use. After you write something, read through it and cut out as many words as you possibly can. Usually the shorter, the better. And then the third one is always put your message up front. So whatever point you're trying to make, it needs to be at the top. And there's a reason for this, and it has to do with the way that people consume written information. They consume written information in what's called an F format. You'll notice that that top horizontal line in the F is the longest. Then we have the second horizontal line, which is a little bit shorter, and then it goes straight down. That means that when people read something, they almost always read in full what's at the top. As they get to the next sentence or paragraph, they usually start skimming it, so they read a little bit less. And then anything that falls below that second line, people just skim through the information. So if you're somebody that has written maybe an email to somebody and you had 5 questions that you needed them to answer, and they didn't answer any of your questions, go back and look where you put the questions. If they were at the bottom, it's probably because the person consumed your information in this format and just didn't even see the questions. Put what's most important up front. If you need them to act on something or schedule a meeting, the very first thing that you need to say is, I'm emailing you because I need you to schedule a date for this meeting. And then you can talk about why you're having a meeting. There are 5 C's of good writing: clear, correct, complete, concise, and considerate. And I'll touch on quickly what these mean. What is clear writing? Clear writing means that you have good word usage, and that it's easy to understand for the people reading. Your grammar is correct. You're using punctuation appropriately, and you have sentence structure that makes sense for your reader. Don't write to show off. You want to write to communicate. If there is even the slightest chance that the person reading your writing is not going to understand a word or a concept that you're sharing, you're showing off and you're not communicating. Be as simple and clear as possible. Second is correct. That just simply means the information you're sharing is accurate and that it's free of errors. Spelling errors, grammar errors, punctuation errors. When it comes to spelling and grammar, people fall into one camp. They either don't care or they absolutely despise people who cannot spell correctly. You have to err on the side in assuming that the people who are reading your writing cannot stand errors, because even if a few of them don't, that one person who reads your writing and thinks that you're not smart because you can't spell a certain word, that could have been the person that might have offered you a job in 5 years. So review what you write and do your best to keep it free of trivial errors. Third is complete. You need to give all of the information for somebody to either learn something if you're trying to teach them something, take action if you're asking them to do something, or be inspired if you're trying to motivate them in some way. We don't need them to read what we have to say and then at the end say, what am I supposed to do with this information? That would mean that we didn't give them all of the information that they need and our writing is not complete. The fourth is concise. Simply stated, nothing more than what's absolutely necessary. And then fifth is considerate. It does not waste the reader's time and it doesn't put into question the reader's intelligence. I would not write an email to my client and talk about her external hip rotators, because that she would have no idea what that means, and it would put into question her intelligence. So I choose language and forms that are, I know for a fact that the person receiving the message will understand, and they won't think twice about what I mean. Anything on that, on writing well, Brendan or Steve?
My biggest problem was sending long emails that people wouldn't read. And for a long time, I was wondering why people wouldn't respond to me. And then the acronym TLDR became a thing. And I used to get a lot of responses, TLDR, too long, didn't read. And I got the memo pretty quickly that I better shorten up what I'm saying, and like you were saying, put the important stuff up first. And then you realize when you put the important stuff first that you don't really even need the rest of it. So I've tried to take the Mike Boyle approach, who's distilled his information down to single words and 3-word sentences, which is impressive, but he gets his point across and he can answer a lot of emails doing that. And I used to write emails like that, and I'm probably like this now. So I've got to improve still. But yeah, if people aren't responding to your stuff, you probably write shitty emails. So you should probably improve on that, because I couldn't get anyone to answer my stuff. Or if they did, they would send me back less than half a sentence. Like, okay, cool. And I'd write an email like this. So yeah, don't be a TLDR. That was me. Still kind of am, but better now.
Know your audience.
Yeah.
That's my 3-word sentence.
Love it, Steve. Very concise. The next is filler words. We talked a little bit about filler words, but filler words are the vocal equivalent of clearing your throat. They don't do anything, and generally they're not pleasant to listen to. If you want to get better or eliminate filler words from your speech, you need to first become aware of what you use, which filler words you use. Find somebody that you trust and ask them, what am I known for? What is my filler word? You'd be surprised, but I'm sure you have one and people probably know exactly what it is and you've never heard them tell you before. But ask them and tell them you're trying to improve, and they'll be honest with you. Once you know what word you use, start self-correcting and start your sentences over. If I say like in the middle of my sentences, each time I say like, I will pause and start the sentence over and try and say the same sentence without that filler word. Obviously, I have to be cognizant of the situations that I'm choosing to do this exercise in. If I'm coaching a group of people and the entire hour I'm self-correcting my filler words, I will be extremely annoying to every person in my group. So I'll probably practice that at home with my family and friends in less important settings than in my job. Practice off the cuff while recording. A good way to get rid of filler words is to pick an easy topic, put your iPhone up and record yourself talking about that topic for a minute or two. Watch the recording and listen to what filler words you use when you're speaking off of the cuff. Filler words, again, fill up space and they're used in transitions. So watch it, learn, and then try and re-record and talk off the cuff again about that topic, doing better with the filler words. And then another great way is to find an accountability buddy. Brendan and I do this for one another. I get off of business calls and Brendan says, "You ready for some feedback?" And he has a whole list of feedback for me from listening in on my business calls, which is amazing. I appreciate him because but it is hard to receive. Find somebody you trust. If you live with a roommate, ask them to listen for them, because the more feedback you can get, the quicker that they'll start to go away.
I actually did what you said not to do, and I had 4 or 5 of my clients be my accountability buddies. I remember I asked Steve Natilli, my client, to be the person that would call me out if I said so or in any of my coaching or any of my speech, and he was real good at poking me and saying, "Hey, And then I would start, like you said, I would start the sentence over. I'd say, well, okay, I got to restart. And you do that for a week, and all of a sudden they're gone because you're so embarrassed that you keep using them and you're so aware. And then the problem becomes that you notice it in everyone else's speech, and then they start to drive you crazy. That's what I did, though. I didn't take your advice. But this was 7 years before I knew you, so that's going to be my excuse.
If you have a client you trust and they don't care, go for it. But for the most part, it will be annoying to listen to somebody say the same sentence 3 times over. And then the last one was that you wanted to get better at presenting. Presenting, 3 columns here. You need to develop physical and vocal skills, which we've touched on today. You need to understand how to structure a presentation to give, and then practice your delivery skills. Delivery skills meaning, how do you stand up next to a PowerPoint on a slide and hold a clicker and interact with an audience and interact with your slides? All of the environmental components of delivering a presentation. Physical and vocal skills. This is a book on the left that the company that I teach for, I coach corporate professionals how to deliver presentations and to communicate. The company I work for, Vautier Communications, they published this book. It's on Amazon. It's called Speak as Well as You Think. It is an informal book, and they give all of the advice you could want about improving your physical and vocal communication skills. It's very tangible. They give lots of examples. I will say that it gives business examples because it is for business professionals, but I've read it many times, and all of what they talk about applies to you all who are in the fitness and sport industry. The second thing is that I'm starting this program in fitness, and so I am beginning to work with fitness professionals to develop their communication and presentation skills. I will be putting together a communications course, a practical course. It's similar to CFSC, but for communication skills. There will be an online component to start, and then there will be an in-person course where you're getting videotaped, you're getting coached in the moment, and you're practicing applying all of these skills in various scenarios that you all find yourselves in. So stay tuned for that, and I'll give you more information about how you can stay up to date on when that starts. Message Organization, these are the 2 best books that I've found for creating presentations. Beyond Bullet Points and then Show and Tell by Dan Rome. They give you many different examples of how you could use the information or the content you have to tell a meaningful story so that it makes sense and is interesting to your audience. If you're building out actual presentations, I would highly suggest you buy both of those books. And then if you want to get better at your actual formal presentation skills, I would suggest working with a coach, whether it's me or somebody. You can Google presentation skills coach. It's not necessarily something that you can watch a bunch of TED Talks and then be good at. In the same way that I wouldn't tell you to get better at deadlifting by watching a bunch of YouTube videos and then going out and deadlifting. It's a skill set that is best learned by somebody who knows and who coached other people. And then once you learn it, then you can go off on your own and practice all of those skills and begin to improve and do that. But I would recommend starting with a coach. So what now? A lot of information was shared. I love this quote by Suzuki: practice only on the days you eat. If you're back in the gym, great, start doing this stuff tomorrow. If you're on Zoom, start practicing the volume piece, use your gestures, help make people feel important. Do all of these things starting tomorrow and do them every single day. You don't want to wait till the end of the week and then set up your video camera and you practice communication skills on Sunday mornings. Practice them every day. Each time we open our mouths, we have an opportunity to get better. Also, I have I wrote this 7-page PDF that's on my website, which you see there, 9to5athlete.com, and it answers the 3 communication challenges that I think fitness professionals face most often and what you can do about them. If you liked the content that you heard in this webinar, this article, I spent a lot of time on it. I did a lot of research, and the information is valuable and it's tactical. So go to 9to5athlete.com. When you put in your email, you'll get an automated response that you'll be able to download the PDF. You'll also be signing up then for a monthly newsletter. I'm sure you can hopefully now believe me when I say that I share only what's necessary and no more. You'll get valuable information on communication skills as it relates to fitness professionals. You'll stay up to date on upcoming courses and then get notified when I write articles every once in a while. And again, it's all related to communication skills for fitness and sport professionals. If you are interested or you're working on developing your formal presentation skills, I get a lot of people asking me, what exactly do you do? What does it mean to be a communication skills or a presentation skills coach? This is essentially a list of everything that I help people with. I help them develop their presentation, meaning they have an idea of what they want to talk about, but that's it. I help them take that idea into an actual slide presentation. I help them design the slides within their presentation. If you have a presentation built out and you simply want feedback on it, I've done that for clients. I help people write speeches, practice the delivery of their presentation or speech. I've helped a few coaches with virtual communication, so coaching on Zoom. If you have an interview coming up for a job, I've helped people prepare for answering interview questions, and then also in business writing as well. That's it. That's me. I loved being on here. There's just a ton of information, and I appreciate your attention and joining in. And thank you, CFSC, for having me.
Thanks for coming on and for sharing.
Thanks, Jenny.
all of
Nice
that.
job.
Thanks,
Great
Steve.
job. So we'll be giving everybody a recording of this and also all of your slides, and I can send them the PDF as well. Do we have any parting words? That was 2 hours, so I think we nailed it, or Jenny nailed it. I didn't do anything but
I would
contribute
say-
with my annoying stories.
To continue the concise lines, I would say 95% of our job is speaking, so you better get good at it.
Amen.
Yeah, there's a lot of communication involved because after about 3 sessions, you're no longer a trainer, you're just a psychologist.
Facts.
Yes.
Yep, they know they grab their foam roll, they're going to do some split squats, they're going to do push-ups, but the rest of it is you communicating with them, keeping them motivated, and playing catch. All right, that's in Portuguese, but I think they're saying thank you.
I know muito bom means very good.
Muito bom is very good. Yeah, I know that, but I don't know the rest of it. So I'll have to Google translate that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Thanks for being on, Steve. We won't thank Kevin because he left.
Kevin's a bum.
What a bum. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you, Steve.